Ilhan Omar is about to get deported back to Somalia, and no, this is not a drill. It started small, just a blurry video, barely noticeable in the chaos of social media, but then everything changed. The clip exploded across the internet. In the footage, Ilhan Omar is seen speaking in Somali. The setting isn't clear, but her voice is steady, deliberate. Then comes the translation. The words hit like a thunderclap. A reporter explains what the translation says. If ICE asks you questions, stay silent. You do not have to answer. The reaction is immediate. The internet erupts. This wasn't some private conversation. This wasn't off the record. This was a sitting U.S. Congresswoman openly telling illegal Somali immigrants how to avoid deportation. And it wasn't just any group of illegal immigrants. It was her own people, Somalians. Within hours, the video goes viral. Social media is on fire. Comments pour in. Some people are furious. Others are in shock. Then Elon Musk steps in. His post on X is blunt, direct, and devastating. His voice, amplified to millions, cuts through the noise. He writes, "This is literally illegal." A sitting U.S. lawmaker is telling illegal immigrants how to break the law. This is madness. The tweet spreads like wildfire. The backlash reaches a boiling point. The pressure is mounting. People are asking the same question over and over again. How is this happening? How is this allowed? Then, finally, Omar responds. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't back down. She fights back. Speaking in an interview, she dismisses the controversy. She sounds annoyed. "That clip is edited," she says. "I wasn't even in that room. That was an interview for a moment." There's silence. Then, boom, the pushback begins. Critics pounce. A political analyst on a news segment responds sharply. He shakes his head. An edited video, that's her defense. Let's say they adjusted the camera angles. Let's say the lighting was changed. Does that change the words that came out of her mouth? Another commentator joins in. His voice is sharp, incredulous. She isn't denying what she said. She's just angry that people saw it. And the discussion doesn't stop there. Omar, still on the defensive, tries another angle. This time, her tone shifts. "This is legal guidance," she argues. "Many immigration advocates say the same thing." The reaction is swift. A host on a political talk show cuts in, his tone filled with disbelief. Legal guidance? A U.S. Congresswoman, an elected official, telling illegal immigrants how to break the law? That's not legal guidance. That's aiding and abetting. Nights pass. People start drawing comparisons. One guest on a podcast spells it out plainly. Imagine if a Republican had done this. Imagine if they were caught telling people how to evade the FBI or dodge federal law. They'd already be in handcuffs. And yet, Omar still holds her ground. But here's the thing. She wasn't just offering general legal advice. She wasn't giving a broad statement for all illegal immigrants. She was speaking specifically to Somalians. The host on a major news panel sums it up. His voice is calm but firm. Omar didn't hold a workshop for Venezuelans or Haitians or Mexicans. Just Somalians, her people. So, was this really about protecting immigrants, or was this about protecting Somalia? And just when it seems like the controversy couldn't get any worse, it does. Another clip surfaces, short, only a few seconds long, but its impact is nuclear. Ilhan Omar is at a podium. The setting is formal. She is speaking with conviction. The room listens closely. Then her voice rings out. She refers to someone as "our president," Hassan Sheikh Mohammed. A stunned silence follows. Then chaos. A political commentator reacts instantly. His voice is urgent. "Wait, hold on, our president? Who is she talking about?" And then the realization sinks in. She wasn't talking about Joe Biden. The moment those words left Ilhan Omar's lips, everything changed. She wasn't talking about Joe Biden. She wasn't referring to any U.S. leader. No, she was talking about Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, the president of Somalia. And she didn't just mention him in passing. She called him our president. The internet exploded once again. A commentator on a major news show replayed the clip, his tone filled with disbelief. He paused for a moment before asking the obvious question. Did I hear that right? Did a sitting U.S. Congresswoman just refer to the Somali president as her president? Another panelist on the show reacted immediately. Her voice was sharp. This isn't some slip of the tongue, this is a pattern. Omar is caught coaching Somali illegal immigrants on how to dodge ICE. Now she's openly calling the leader of Somalia our president. Who exactly is she working for? The backlash was instant. Social media flooded with one simple question. Which country is Ilhan Omar truly loyal to? And the debate got ugly fast. Supporters of Omar scrambled to defend her. They argued that her words were being twisted, that our president was just a figure of speech. But skeptics weren't buying it. A political analyst on a primetime news segment broke it down. His tone was firm, controlled, but the message was clear. Ilhan Omar represents the 5th Congressional District of Minnesota. She is a U.S. lawmaker, so why is she speaking like she's a Somali official? And then came the comparisons. Another commentator jumped in, his voice tinged with frustration. Imagine if a Republican senator referred to the Russian president as our president. Imagine if they publicly supported a foreign leader accused of corruption and terrorism. There would be calls for resignation within hours. But because it's Ilhan Omar, we're supposed to just ignore this. The controversy only deepened as more information about Hassan Sheikh Mohammed came to light. A news anchor on a major network laid out the facts, her voice cutting through the noise. Let's be clear about who Hassan Sheikh Mohammed is. This is a man who has been accused of embezzling tens of millions of dollars in foreign aid money that was supposed to help starving Somalians. Instead, it disappeared under his watch. And that wasn't all. A foreign policy expert chimed in. His tone was grave. This isn't just about financial corruption. Mohammed has also been linked to the terrorist group Al-Shabaab, one of the most dangerous jihadist organizations in the world. He has been accused of arming and funding them. And yet Ilhan Omar calls him our president. For many Americans, this wasn't just a controversy anymore. This was a betrayal. One congressman spoke out, his words striking a nerve. We have a member of Congress openly defending a foreign leader with a track record of corruption and terrorism. This isn't a small issue. This is about national security. But Omar, she stayed silent. Her office refused to issue a clarification. No explanation. No attempt to correct the record. And that silence, it spoke volumes. Now, the questions were no longer just about illegal immigration. Now, people were asking something far more serious. If Ilhan Omar doesn't see Joe Biden as her president, then who exactly does she serve? And this was only the beginning. The deeper people dug into Hassan Sheikh Mohammed's past, the worse things got. At first, it seemed like just another political controversy. Ilhan Omar, referring to a foreign leader as our president. But then the question started spreading like wildfire. Who exactly is Hassan Sheikh Mohammed? And when Americans got their answer, they were horrified. A news anchor on primetime television laid it all out. Her tone was serious. Let's talk about who Hassan Sheikh Mohammed really is. This is a man who has been accused of embezzling tens of millions of dollars in foreign aid money that came from American taxpayers. Instead of helping his people, it vanished. But that was only the beginning. A political commentator cut in, his voice filled with disbelief. He wasn't just stealing money. He was using it to fund Al-Shabaab, one of the most dangerous jihadist terrorist groups in the world. And let's not forget, Al-Shabaab has targeted American interests before. That's when the outrage turned into something more. A guest on a major news panel broke it down, his voice cold and analytical. Ilhan Omar can talk all she wants about legal guidance and immigration rights, but now we're talking about something else entirely. We are talking about a U.S. lawmaker with clear ties to a leader who has supported terrorism. And it wasn't just about funding terrorists. Another analyst spoke up, her voice sharp. Hassan Sheikh Mohammed has also been accused of violently silencing opposition. Journalists in Aliyah have been arrested, beaten, even killed under his rule. This is a man who doesn't tolerate dissent. And yet, Ilhan Omar calls him our president. By this point, people weren't just questioning Omar's words, they were questioning her motives. One congressman didn't hold back. Standing before reporters, he made his position clear. Ilhan Omar needs to answer for this. It is completely unacceptable for a member of Congress to show any level of support for a foreign leader with this kind of track record.
And then came the comparisons. A conservative commentator on a late-night political show laid it out plainly. Imagine if a Republican senator called Vladimir Putin our president. Imagine if they were caught on video praising a foreign leader with a record of corruption and terrorism. They would be done career over. But when it's Ilhan Omar, silence. And that silence, it was deafening. People waited for Omar to respond, to explain herself, to deny that she supported Hassan Sheikh Mohammed. But she didn't. Her office refused to comment. No clarifications, no walkbacks, nothing. And that only made the outrage grow louder. One political strategist summed it up in a single, chilling sentence. This is no longer just about immigration. This is about national security. Because now, people weren't just asking whether Ilhan Omar was helping illegal immigrants. They were asking something far worse. Was she protecting a foreign leader with ties to terrorism? And once that question was out in the open, there was no stopping what came next. The hypocrisy was staggering. For years, Ilhan Omar had built her brand on one simple message: standing against dictatorship, fighting for democracy, calling out leaders who abuse their power. But now, the same woman who routinely attacked Donald Trump, calling him a wannabe dictator, was openly praising a foreign leader accused of corruption, funding terrorism, and silencing his critics. The contradictions were impossible to ignore. A political commentator laid it out on a primetime news show, his voice sharp. Let's not forget, Ilhan Omar has spent years warning us about so-called authoritarianism in America. She said Trump wanted to be a dictator. She said Republicans were gutting democracy. And yet, here she is, calling Hassan Sheikh Mohammed our president. A man accused of funding Al-Shabaab, a literal terrorist group. The outrage was growing. A guest on a major political podcast broke it down further. She calls Trump a threat to democracy, but she has no problem supporting a leader who jails journalists, who is linked to terrorists. How does that make sense? And people were starting to ask another question. Why? Why was Omar so comfortable attacking American leaders while turning a blind eye to corruption in Somalia? One congressman didn't hold back. Standing at a press conference, he spelled it out clearly. If Ilhan Omar believes Trump is a dictator, fine, that's her opinion. But if she's truly against dictatorships, then why is she silent about Hassan Sheikh Mohammed? Why is she defending a man accused of stealing foreign aid? Why is she not condemning a leader linked to terrorist groups? And once again, Omar refused to answer. Her office declined interviews, no statements, no response. A political analyst on a major news panel shook his head. This is how you know it's all just politics. When it's Trump, Omar speaks out. But when it's Somalia, she's quiet. Why? Because this was never about democracy. This was never about human rights. This was about advancing a narrative, and that narrative doesn't include holding her own people accountable. That hit a nerve because this wasn't just hypocrisy. For many Americans, this was betrayal. A conservative host on a late-night show summed it up bluntly. If you spend years telling Americans that Trump is a dictator, that Republicans are threats to democracy, and that democracy itself is on the line, then you don't get to turn around and support a foreign leader who funds terrorists. You don't get to call a corrupt leader our president and expect people to just let it slide. And this wasn't just talk. Calls for Omar to answer for her comments were growing louder, and the pressure was about to reach a breaking point. Because what happened next changed everything. For days, the controversy surrounding Ilhan Omar had been building. The video of her coaching Somali illegal immigrants was bad enough. Then came the clip where she referred to the Somali president as our president, which made things even worse. The public was furious. The pressure was mounting. But Omar, she stayed silent. And that's when Brandon Gill stepped in. The congressman from Texas had never been afraid of controversy. He had built his reputation on being fearless, relentless, and brutally direct. And when he saw what was happening with Omar, he knew it was time to say what everyone else was thinking. Gill didn't just release a statement. He didn't just go on TV. He went straight to X, formerly Twitter, and dropped a bombshell. His post was simple, direct, and explosive. America would be a better place if Ilhan Omar were deported back to Somalia. The internet erupted. People lost their minds. Supporters of Omar were outraged, calling Gill a racist, a xenophobe, a fascist. Some even accused him of inciting violence. But Gil didn't back down. Within hours, he was invited onto news shows, political podcasts, and primetime debates. Every time, he delivered the same message. Standing in front of the cameras, his voice was clear, strong, and unshakable. I didn't call for Ilhan Omar to be deported. I said that America would be a better place if she were, and I stand by that. The reporters tried to push him, asking if he regretted his words. Gil didn't blink. Let's be real here, he continued. Ilhan Omar came to this country as a refugee. She was given the greatest opportunity in the world to become an American, to serve in Congress, to represent us citizens. But what has she done with that privilege? She spends her time defending illegal immigrants, calling foreign leaders our president, and tearing down America at every turn. The reaction was split right down the middle. On one side, Gil's supporters saw him as a hero, finally saying what needed to be said. They flooded his post with likes, shares, and comments, praising him for having the courage to stand up against Ilhan Omar. On the other side, pure outrage. Progressive activists, journalists, and even some members of Congress demanded that Gil apologize. Some called for him to be censured, others even suggested he should be removed from office. Yet Gil still refused to back down. One interviewer tried to trap him, asking, "Congressman, are you saying Ilhan Omar doesn't belong in America?" Gil didn't hesitate. "I'm saying that Ilhan Omar does not put America first. I'm saying that we have a problem when a U.S. Congresswoman is more concerned about Somali illegal immigrants than American citizens. And I'm saying that we would be better off without people in office who don't respect this country." The debate raged on. Was Gil out of line? Was he simply speaking the truth? Was it fair to suggest that a U.S. citizen, an elected member of Congress, should be deported? And most importantly, what would happen next? Because one thing was clear, Brandon Gil had just escalated this controversy to an entirely new level. Brandon Gil wasn't just trending, he was dominating the news cycle. His post about Ilhan Omar had turned a political scandal into a full-blown war. The internet was divided. Debates were raging across every platform. And just when things couldn't get any more explosive, CNN decided to step in. They wanted a showdown. Gil accepted the invitation without hesitation. This wasn't going to be some scripted softball interview, this was CNN. This was the mainstream media preparing to go on the attack. And Gil, he was ready. The moment he sat down in the studio, the tension was palpable. The host wasted no time. She went straight for the kill, her tone sharp and direct. "Congressman, let's get right to it. You said that America would be better off if Ilhan Omar were deported. That's an extreme statement. Do you stand by it?" Gil didn't blink. His voice was steady, firm. "I said what I meant, and I meant what I said." The host leaned forward. "Ilhan Omar is a U.S. citizen. She's been an American since she was 17. You can't just deport someone because you don't like their politics." Gil smiled, the kind of smile that said he saw this attack coming from a mile away. "I never said she should be deported. I said America would be better off if she were." "That's a big difference." The host scoffed, "That's just semantics." Gil didn't back down, his tone sharpened. "Is it because? Let's talk about what's actually happening here." Ilhan Omar was caught coaching Somali illegal immigrants on how to evade ICE. She referred to the Somali president as our president, and when questioned, she refused to clarify her words. So I have to ask, who is she really representing, American citizens or illegal immigrants from Somalia? The host wasn't expecting that. She shifted tactics. "Congressman, let's be honest here. This isn't about immigration policy. This is about you singling out a woman of color, a Muslim immigrant, and suggesting she doesn't belong in this country." Gil's expression hardened. "No, this is about holding our elected officials accountable. If Ilhan Omar were a white congresswoman defending illegal Irish immigrants, I'd be saying the same thing. This isn't about race. This is about loyalty." The host was losing ground. She needed to regain control. Her voice rose slightly. Ilhan Omar was simply advocating for legal rights. The Fifth Amendment allows people to remain silent. She was informing immigrants about their rights under U.S. law. Gil pounced. "Are you saying illegal immigrants have a constitutional right to break the law?" The host hesitated, just for a moment, but that pause was everything. Gil continued, his voice unwavering. "Let's be real. Ilhan Omar wasn't advising people on legal rights. She was instructing illegal immigrants on how to avoid deportation. That's aiding and abetting. That's un-American." The host was visibly frustrated. Now, the debate was slipping out of her control. Her voice tightened. "Ilhan Omar was elected by American voters. Are you saying she shouldn't be in Congress?" Gil didn't miss a beat. "I'm saying that if you represent a U.S. district, you should be fighting for American citizens, not illegal immigrants, not foreign governments, not Somalia." Silence for a few seconds. The CNN studio was dead quiet. The host had no comeback. Then, in a desperate attempt to pivot, she quickly wrapped up the interview. "Congressman Brandon Gil, thank you for your time." But everyone watching knew exactly what had just happened. Gil had walked into CNN's house and dismantled their argument on live television. And before the cameras even cut, the internet was already on fire. Clips of the interview spread across social media. Conservative commentators hailed it as a masterclass in dismantling left-wing media bias. Progressives called it dangerous, reckless, an attack on democracy itself. And Ilhan Omar, still silent. But she wouldn't be for long, because this controversy was about to reach its breaking point. The CNN interview had been a disaster for them. Brandon Gill had walked into their studio, faced their toughest questions, and come out stronger. Social media was ablaze. His supporters cheered him on, calling it one of the greatest takedowns of mainstream media in years. But the biggest impact, Ilhan Omar was still silent. For days, she refused to respond. No press conferences, no public statements, nothing. But that silence was about to be shattered because Brandon Gill wasn't done. Just as the debate over his CNN interview was reaching its peak, Gill dropped another bombshell. He went back to X, formerly Twitter, and this time, he didn't just make a statement, he took action. Gill announced the launch of a formal petition. Ilhan Omar has spent years undermining this country, siding with illegal immigrants over American citizens, and showing clear allegiance to Somalia over the United States. Enough is enough. I am calling for her removal from Congress, and if necessary, we will push for her to be investigated for aiding and abetting illegal immigration. If you agree, sign this petition now. The internet exploded. Within hours, the petition had hundreds of thousands of signatures. The movement was real. Omar's supporters panicked. Progressive lawmakers, journalists, and left-wing activists scrambled to push back. They called the petition dangerous, undemocratic, a direct attack on the first Somali American woman in Congress. Some even went as far as calling it an act of white supremacy. But Gill's supporters weren't backing down. The petition kept growing. More and more Americans signed their names, demanding that Ilhan Omar be held accountable. Then, finally, Omar broke her silence. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't do a major TV interview. Instead, she posted a furious response on her social media pages. Her words were filled with rage. This is a blatant attempt to silence a woman of color who has spent her career fighting for justice. These attacks are fueled by racism, Islamophobia, and right-wing extremism. I will not back down. The response was predictable. Omar didn't address the accusations against her. She didn't explain why she told Somali illegal immigrants how to evade ICE. She didn't clarify why she called the Somali president our president. Instead, she played the victim. And to the mainstream media, that was enough. Left-wing journalists rallied around her. News headlines flooded in Ilhan Omar under racist attack from far-right lawmakers. Brandon Gill's dangerous rhetoric sparks outrage. White nationalist movement pushes for Ilhan Omar's removal. Not a single mention of the actual controversy. Not a word about Omar's support for a corrupt foreign leader. Not a question about her loyalty to America. Brandon Gill called them out on a fiery live stream. He didn't hold back. His voice was sharp, cutting through the noise. This is how the media works. They don't defend Ilhan Omar's actions because they can't. Instead, they scream racism, Islamophobia, white supremacy, anything to distract from the truth. But here's the reality. Americans are waking up. They see what's happening, and they're not buying these lies anymore. His supporters erupted. The media firestorm was raging. The battle lines were drawn, and now there was no turning back. Because Ilhan Omar wasn't just fighting for her reputation anymore, she was fighting for her political survival. Ilhan Omar was cornered. The petition was gaining momentum. The calls for her removal from Congress were growing louder, and her response playing the victim. Racism, Islamophobia, far-right extremism. She refused to address the real issue. She didn't explain why she coached Somali illegal immigrants on how to evade ICE. She didn't clarify why she referred to the Somali president as our president. She didn't defend her ties to a foreign leader accused of funding terrorism. Instead, she hid behind identity politics, and for many Americans, that wasn't good enough anymore. On conservative news networks, commentators tore into her. One anchor didn't hold back. His voice was firm, controlled, but the frustration was undeniable. This is the same tactic we've seen over and over again. When faced with real, serious allegations, Ilhan Omar doesn't explain herself. She doesn't defend her record. She just screams racism and expects the conversation to end. Another panelist jumped in. Her voice was sharp. This isn't about race. This is about loyalty. If a Republican lawmaker had openly praised Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping, there would be hearings in Congress tomorrow. But because it's Ilhan Omar, the media is acting like it's no big deal. But it was a big deal. Brandon Gill was doubling down. He went on national television, his voice calm but deadly serious. Ilhan Omar is not the victim here. The victims are the American citizens she ignored. The victims are the taxpayers who watched their money go to a foreign leader accused of corruption and terrorism. The victims are the legal immigrants who followed the rules, while she told illegal immigrants how to break them. The battle wasn't just political anymore, it was personal. For her supporters, Omar was being unfairly targeted by a Republican mob. To them, this was about protecting the first Somali American congresswoman from a racist attack. For her critics, this was about accountability. It was about whether a U.S. lawmaker was loyal to America or to a foreign country. The tension was at a breaking point. And then the legal experts stepped in. A former federal prosecutor appeared on a legal analysis show. His words were measured, precise, but damning. Let's be clear. If Ilhan Omar knowingly assisted illegal immigrants in evading law enforcement, that could be classified as aiding and abetting. That is a federal offense. The host leaned in. So you're saying she could actually face criminal charges? The expert nodded. If the evidence is there, yes. And let's not forget, there are also questions about her pastor, about how she entered the country, about alleged marriage fraud. If Congress decides to investigate this, it could get very serious for her. The stakes had just skyrocketed. This wasn't just about her seat in Congress anymore. This was about whether she had actually broken the law. One political strategist laid it out in simple terms. His voice was firm. This is no longer just a controversy. This is a potential criminal investigation. And if that happens, Ilhan Omar might not have to worry about re-election. She might have to worry about something much worse. For the first time, real fear was setting in. Omar wasn't just fighting for her political career anymore. She was fighting to stay out of prison. And the biggest question, would she survive it, or was this the beginning of the end? Ilhan Omar was out of options. For weeks, she had dodged the questions. She had called the accusations racist, Islamophobic, and a right-wing smear campaign. But now, none of that mattered anymore because this wasn't just about politics anymore. This was about survival. The petition to remove her from Congress had gathered millions of signatures. Republican lawmakers were pushing for an official investigation, and legal experts were openly discussing the possibility of federal charges. This was no longer just another political controversy. This was a full-scale political war. Brandon Gill was leading the charge. Standing before a packed room of reporters, he made his message clear. His voice was sharp, unwavering. We have a sitting member of Congress who has shown more concern for illegal Somali immigrants than for American citizens. She has referred to the Somali president as our president. She has refused to clarify her words. And now we have a simple question. Does Ilhan Omar serve the United States, or does she serve Somalia? The media exploded. Progressives called it an attack on democracy. They accused Gill of inciting violence. Some even claimed he was endangering Omar's life. But Gill didn't care. He went on every major network, repeating the same message. On a primetime news interview, he looked directly into the camera. His tone was firm. This is not about race. This is not about religion. This is about loyalty. If a U.S. lawmaker is more loyal to a foreign government than to the country they swore to serve, that is a national security issue. Period. And now, even some Democrats were starting to waver. A senior Democratic strategist admitted on background. The Omar situation is a mess. We're doing everything we can to protect her. But the more she refuses to answer questions, the worse it gets. Even within her own party, people were getting nervous. And then, the final blow, a high-ranking Republican lawmaker went on national television and dropped a bombshell. We are officially requesting an ethics investigation into Ilhan Omar's conduct. If the evidence supports it, we will push for a full congressional inquiry. This was the moment everything changed. The media panicked. Omar's allies scrambled. Her supporters called it a witch hunt. But it didn't matter anymore. The wheels were already in motion. And for the first time, Ilhan Omar knew she wasn't untouchable. She had spent years attacking America, undermining its laws, defending foreign interests, and believing there would never be consequences. But now those consequences were here. Her future in Congress was no longer guaranteed. Her entire career was on the line. And the biggest question remained, would she survive this, or was this the end of Ilhan Omar? Drop your thoughts into the comments section below.